Alright, 200 bucks later, let's see what we got. Joke's on you! Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we are taking a look at two all-banana controllers that SGF Devices recently sent me. The first is the Fost, which you see here, and the Bridget. I'm only going to show this, which I'll reveal it later in this video. It came with a surprise art printed directly onto the controller, and I did a short unboxing segment, so we'll get to this in a little bit. So that's a bit of a teaser through the styrofoam sleeve. So I want to send a huge thanks to Andy from SGF for all the back and forth emails, answering questions, bouncing ideas off each other, making the arrangements, and being an all-around stellar primate. I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity, man, so I really appreciate it. And like the company, of course, as a whole, I really appreciate this, so thank you so much. So let's jump into the Fost and see what we've got here. The Fost is a 3D printed controller running GP2040 CE firmware. It has a 12-button layout with 6 menu buttons along the upper left-hand side. From the left to right, we have Start, Select, Guide / Home, Touchpad while you're at it, Touchpad / Capture, and then L3 / LS and R3 / RS. The menu buttons are 3D printed, whereas the directional and action buttons are convex, translucent, injection molded caps. And they have a really nice feel to them. They're fantastic. They were originally out of purple caps, but thanks to their new capabilities, they can now print color directly onto the buttons as well. And if you didn't know that, you might not notice because the tinting is flawless. It's like, if you look really close, maybe I'll do like a couple like pictures or something to showcase that or something, but we'll see. They don't use primer for these caps, so you won't get a solid color on here, but that's better because of the fantastic RGB LED lighting the Fost comes with. Along the top or back of the controller, we have a tournament lockout switch, a USB-C port, a 3.5mm port for L3 and R3, which I'll touch more on in a bit because there's some exciting stuff I want to talk about there, and of course a USB pass-through port. Right out of the box, the Fost is compatible with Nintendo Switch, PS3, PC, and Steam Deck. If using a USB dongle in the designated port, things open up to PS4, PS5, and Xbox. To switch between platforms, simply hold down the corresponding button when plugging in. This information is included in the box and on their website. One thing I like is that your selection is saved across plug/unplug cycles. Since I use Switch exclusively, I can always pick up and play without resetting anything, which is nice. If you want to change the controller's directional behavior, you can achieve this by holding down certain button combinations. The options available are left analog stick emulation, right analog stick emulation, and digital D-pad. You can also change the SOCD modes to your choice of up priority, neutral, or last input priority. Additionally, the RGB LED patterns can be manipulated with various button combinations, so you can do things like next animation, previous animation, adjust the brightness up and down, and other parameters. If you need to access the interior, there are different ways to do this, but I find it simple enough to use my fingernail and gently lift, I'll show you right here, lift the tab on each panel before sliding them back. So I just like nudge that once, and then I nudge this one, and then you just like slide those off the back of the case, and then you have access to that stuff, all the goods. Super easy. And while we're here, it's nice that they've added a QR code to access the manual. My Fost weighs about 265 grams, is 218 millimeters across, or 8.5 inches, 130 millimeters deep, or a little over 5 inches, and 15 millimeters thick. 12 millimeters if you're not including the button travel distance. If you look at the controller straight on, and again, I might need to do like a little close-up video or something, depending on like how this looks, but if you're looking at it straight on, the button will almost appear to vanish completely into the case when you press down. Now let's take a moment to discuss the 3.5mm port and why I'm excited about this. So some time ago, I don't recall what video it was in or where, but I remember mentioning how the amount of lock-on involved in Crimson Clover's Unlimited mode gets pretty tedious right out of the gate. Part of this may have been because I was on the Switch Pro controller at the time, and I also prefer mapping my buttons a certain way, but regardless, I vividly recall saying how it would be amazing just to have something like a foot pedal so that all the lock-on could be done with something other than my fingers. Well, guess what? While Andy and I were emailing back and forth, he asked if I would be interested in checking out some foot pedals, and here we go. 2 Trigo foot pedals. These are actually just tattoo gun pedals. Andy told me that. I probably would never have guessed that. But you can use them for whatever you have mapped to L3 and R3 using the cable that also came with it. So I've checked Crimson Clover since, and from what I can tell, the button configuration in the game's menu won't actually let me use an L3 or R3. That said, I jumped into DNF Duel just the other day to test the pedals and get a feel for doing various attacks and things, and it's really cool. I need to play a lot more to give these a proper review, which is definitely the aim. I'm just not sure when I will get to that, but so far the potential is awesome, and I'm stoked Andy brought these to my attention. They have a nice click to them, they have a solid weight to them, of course, and they're just all around really, really cool. Let's get back to the Fost though. In terms of the build quality, it's definitely lighter than something like the Hot 42 G16, yet the weight still feels nice, and it's a sturdy controller. Pressing the menu buttons has a firm and satisfying feel with a great click. The directional and action buttons are smooth to the touch, responsive, and produce a soft sound. The top of the controller feels incredibly solid with literally no give. It's amazing. While the smaller of the two back panels may strike you as thin or flimsy, since you'll feel it bend when holding the controller or pressing against it, this does not feel like a cheap controller. Furthermore, Andy did assure me that the durability is off the charts, so we'll be putting his claims to the test momentarily. Because the parts are 3D printed, some of their controllers may occasionally have very insignificant inconsistencies. That said, SGF maintains a high standard and will not sell or ship any blemished units, B-stock, or deficient units. As for the performance specifically, I've been using the Fost for a number of weeks at this point, and it has been impeccable during every session. The button spacing is superb, and I haven't encountered a single issue, so there's been nothing like wonky inputs or noticeable input delay, no problems with connectivity, etc. I never play with the controller on my desk or tabletop, but I did do a brief session to see if the comfort was still there, and it definitely is. I'm really into slim controllers like this, so it feels fantastic and right at home on my lap. The Fost is currently priced at around 150 USD, which is about 212 Canadian or 118 pounds. SGF keeps prices lower by not including things like a USB cable, which almost everyone has, a carrying case, dongles, external switches, etc. These items are still available as extras you can add to your order, and they offer bundle discounts depending on what you select. While I didn't pay for my Fost, I do believe it's a reasonable price considering the durability, performance, satisfying look and feel, and all of the care and consideration that has gone into this controller. I absolutely love it. It totally fits my lifestyle, is comfortable, doesn't take up too much space, and is just something to appreciate. There's a lot more I could touch on, but this would get pretty lengthy, so let's jump into the Bridget next, which has recently undergone significant changes. I'll mostly zero in on what sets the Bridget apart from the Fost, so we're not covering too much ground we've already covered. But first, let's jump into the unboxing and art reveal clip. Oh man. So that's that. Upside down, who knows? I honestly cannot fathom a guess, but I'll just take a look. Oh, nice. It's funny, Shinobi non grata, so I will do a closer look. It's funny because I mentioned this idea, on the back too. That is sweet. But then we were going to do, I was just gonna leave it up to him entirely, and then it looks like he ended up doing this anyway. So that is super, super cool. And I think I started playing this game last year when it came out. And I think what I'm going to do is when I get back to it and actually buckle down for clearing the game, this will have to be what I play it on. So yeah, that is super awesome. And just looking at the quality of this, I am nothing but impressed. Even the buttons, I'll see if I can get a little closer on the buttons specifically. Like that is just awesome. Holy smoke. So yeah, huge thanks Andy for just putting this together. Man, amazing. Anyway, I'll leave off there and we'll get back to the video. So one of the most significant changes is that the Bridget is now using the same shell as the Fost, which allows full upgradability. If you've never seen the previous version, the menu buttons were under the surface of the shell and you just pressed down. They had like a rectangular tongue-shaped cut in the material, which is a neat idea, yet there was something about that design I was never really into whenever I would see pictures on Twitter or anywhere else. It just wasn't really something that clicked with me. So it's great to see that they've shifted things to this completely amazing Fost style design that I absolutely love. Like the Fost, we have a 12-button layout, and they are now using injection molded caps instead of 3D printed ones from the previous version. Unlike the Fost, the Bridget does not include RGB LED lighting, and these two ports on the back, these ones right here, are empty. But there's always the potential to use them for future upgrade options. You still have your tournament lockout switch, your USB-C right there, and Kale-Chalk V2 switches, etc. This time around, you do get PS4 compatibility right out of the box, in addition to PS3, PC, Steam Deck, and Switch. You can, of course, play on PS5 and Xbox using an adapter, but this will introduce a few milliseconds of delay because your adapter will have to manage both authentication and signal conversion. The Bridget is noticeably heavier, and mine weighs just over 293 grams. Part of that weight is undoubtedly the epic print job on either side. Things like the silhouettes on the back, the meteor hammer chain, and the title, for instance, those are all raised and have such a nice feel to them, just that texture. So the ink layers definitely add to the weight. Overall, I'm just really impressed with what they can do now. The Bridget's performance is right up there with the Fost. While I haven't had it for as long since it shipped later, I have not encountered any issues so far, and it feels great. Everything is responsive and plays cleanly, connecting to Switch is super smooth, and there really isn't much to say because it's an all-around solid controller, and I'm very pleased with it. For those who aren't after the Fost or just want to keep the cost a little lower while still having something fantastic to use, the Bridget is about 100 USD, 140 Canadian, or about 80 pounds, so it's a very budget-friendly controller option for those interested. To be honest, I think that more or less wraps things up here. I am certainly enjoying both of these and cannot thank SGF enough for providing me with these stellar controllers and everything else they've done or shared. I really appreciate it and trust this video does some justice to their effort and dedication. Again, a huge thanks to Andy for all the correspondence. He's pretty much like a son to me at this point. We've laughed together, cried together. It's just been a wild ride I will never forget. If you enjoyed this video, let me know what you think in the comments, or if there's a controller you'd like to see covered in the near future, I'm all ears, so definitely leave that below. Major thanks to everybody who stuck around until the end. Have a stellar one, and we will see you all next time.